tell us and our audience your top 3 most important ways to train up children in the way that they should go.
I think my top 3 really truly are consistency. For Tim and myself, especially me as a mother, I see the difference when I'm consistent in working with them or teaching them something versus when I'm inconsistent. And that consistency just brings a lot more fruitfulness than the inconsistency. So that's one of them. My second one is communication. I think especially raising boys to be young men in the future, I just want to make sure they have a really solid base of communication and they know that there's always open lines and there's always going to be an answer and it's always going to be truthful, and if we don't know, we're going to look at it together. And that was something, I feel like that's every day I'm telling them, like, I don't know that. Let's look that up together. Or you know what? Mommy's going to tell you how that works. And then the third thing is, and this really came from my own parents, is just the ability to be teachable, which I think is probably the hardest thing.
That's really
because if you can learn to be teachable early on, as much as the teachability hurts sometimes, it is just so worth the goodness that comes from your heart and the heart changes that happen out of those teachable moments, and being willing to be flexible and say, yeah, I was wrong, or I need to make a switch on that.
That's so good. Sarah, you mentioned your husband, Tim, and we know that he is very involved in your Instagram. And tell us a little bit about that, because I know you guys do a lot of Q&As and things like that.
I think when you're sharing anything, it's fun to give a fuller view. It's, nice to hear a wife speak or a woman speak. But I think when you get this full view of a marriage and how that looks and raising your kids and running your house, then it's just a lot more of, I don't even want to say, the word isn't right, that's like, it's attractive, but I think it pulls people in and it engages people more because they're able to connect on a more relatable level than just one person.
Can you tell us how the Bible has helped you throughout your marriage and even parenting your boys? How has that played a role?
Can I just say, like, everything?
Yeah, right.
Start to finish, all of it. I think if I'm looking specifically into my marriage with Tim and I, one of the things that's been helpful for me, because I tend to be a stronger personality or a stronger willed communicator, and Tim will always say, you're better at words than I am. And so that's not to be praised specifically, but one thing that's helped me is where in the Bible it talks about being led by the Spirit. And that's something that for myself as a wife, as a mother, I find myself trying to remind myself to pause throughout the day and say, like, okay, Sarah, like, Lord, what would you have me do in this? Holy Spirit, what would you have me do in this? Because I don't have all the right answers. And when I try to be led by Sarah, that's when, tempers happen and words come out that I don't mean. And, communication isn't at its finest. But when I'm being led by the Spirit, I can tell a difference in our marriage, which tells a difference in our children, which tells a difference in the entire atmosphere of our home.
Can you tell us how you got started on Instagram?
Well, I actually got started because long ago when I moved up to our current hometown with Tim, where his family was from, I was pretty darn lonely. And I felt like I was just trying to kind of fill lonely little gaps. And then we had a couple children and the loneliness just kept building till it came to kind of a breaking point. And at that breaking point, Tim and I had some really big heart-to-heart conversations about what was really happening. And once we kind of moved on from that, I remember specifically one time he was like, I'm saying this in the nicest way, but you need a hobby. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, I love you. I'm your best friend, but like, you need something. And I after being slightly offended, I took it to heart. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know. And I had a camera laying around. And at that point, I decided to pick up my camera and teach myself photography. Cool. From there, it blossomed into taking pictures of my kids. Then fast forward a few years, we built our new home. And I told Tim, I said, I don't just want to share photos of my boys. Like, that just feels like really meaningless and pointless. I really want to share our lives. And when I began to do that and kind of made that switch and took in onto that more lifestyle family niche, it began to build this incredible community bit by bit. And that's kind of what it's flourished into now.
Yeah.
really
and also
cool.
we're really excited about your new book. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Thank you. Yes. So the day I found out I was pregnant, I also had a meeting with a publisher to pitch some children's book ideas.
Wow.
And we had 3 ideas all lined up. And in the shower, isn't that where all great ideas happen?
100%.
In the shower, I had just found out I was pregnant, hadn't even told Tim yet. And I was like, had this idea, like, wouldn't it be neat to write a book about the pregnancy journey? And like, even that would be, you'd be able to sit next to your child and read it, and it would be endearing and sweet.
I love it.
And so I pitched all 3 of the books that we had planned on pitching. And then at the end, I said, I just have one more idea. I'm going to throw it out there. And when I did, he was like, forget the other books. We are going with this one.
I love
like,
it.
there's nothing like that on the market. And so this book is called I Grew With You. And it's really, it takes, what I love is that without inherently pushing Jesus on people in a forceful way, it's inherently pro-life. It talks about a baby being formed from the very beginning of conception to the very end when labor and delivery happens, and just the bonding of a mother to her child from that moment that she finds out she's pregnant. And so it's really special to me. And another little point that's special to me is that as you'll flip through each page, it is a different mom. I just felt like there is not 2 moms that carry the same. And so I want children to be able to open the book and say, Mommy, she looks like you.
I love that.
And so that was very intentional, very important to me. And I'm so excited that it's diverse in that sense as well.
Thanks for joining our Sisterhood of Faith. If you have any interesting topics you would like to see us cover on the show, please let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to check out all of our full 30-minute episodes on FISM.tv/outspoken.